Why didn't the leper in Luke 5 demand that Jesus cleanse him of his leprosy? This is the question that we seek to answer today as we continue our verse-by-verse study of the book of Luke on Walking Through the Bible. If you have a Bible with you, turn to Luke chapter 5. We're going to be reading from verses 12 to 16. If you don't have a Bible, don't worry. Just follow along with us on the screen. The version that we'll be reading from is the New King James Version. So Luke chapter 5, beginning at verse 12. And it happened when he was in a certain city that, behold, a man who was full of leprosy saw Jesus, and he fell on his face and implored him, saying, Lord, if you are willing, you can make me clean. Then he put out his hand and touched him, saying, I am willing, be cleansed. Immediately the leprosy left him, and he charged him to tell no one, but go and show yourself to the priest, and make an offering for your cleansing as a testimony to them, just as Moses commanded. However, the report went around concerning him all the more, and great multitudes came together to hear and to be healed by him of their infirmities. So he himself often withdrew into the wilderness and prayed. In our walk through the Bible, this is the third time that we have discussed this story. The other times was in our discussion of Matthew 8, 1-4 and Mark 1, 40-45. Both lessons can be found in their respective playlists on our YouTube channel. None of the three Gospels give us the setting of this miracle, and thus it is not important for us to know. From our study of Leviticus, we have come to know a lot about leprosy and what the law of Moses said about it, for it took us 12 episodes to cover the topic in Leviticus 13 and 14. From that study, we know that what we refer to leprosy as today is much narrower in scope than what the Bible speaks of. Modern leprosy is an infectious disease that causes severe disfiguring skin sores and nerve damage in the arms, legs, and skin areas around the body. Although it is not too contagious, it can be spread if you come in close contact with the nose or mouth droplets of someone who has untreated leprosy. When discussed in Leviticus, leprosy could also refer to a variety of infectious skin diseases that may differ from what we call leprosy today. The infectious nature of leprosy is why Leviticus 13:46 said that lepers were to live outside the camp and later outside the city until the leprosy was gone, and they were pronounced clean by the priest. They were also to yell, unclean, unclean, to everyone who passed by as a warning. So in Luke, that this leprous man approached Jesus is unusual in and of itself. But he also had a reason for doing so. He had faith that Jesus could heal him of his leprosy. So in order for Jesus to do this, he needed to approach Jesus. This showed that the man not only had faith, a belief that Jesus could heal him, he had living faith, a faith that spurred him to action. When the leper came to Jesus, he fell down on his face, meaning that he bowed down. Matthew told us that the leper worshipped him. Since worship means to bow down, there is no discrepancy here. Worship is something that is reserved only for God. Man was God's creation and as such was not to be worshipped. Peter said as much to Cornelius in Acts 10:26 when he told Cornelius to stand up when Cornelius came and worshipped Peter. That Jesus accepted worship here is another passage that is proof that Jesus is God and not simply a prophet of God. It is interesting that the leper didn't come here and beg Jesus to heal him. It wouldn't have been wrong to do so, as others came and spoke to Jesus this way and Jesus healed them. Instead, the leper came to Jesus and said, if you are willing, you can make me clean. This man's faith in Jesus was so strong that he allowed Jesus to make the choice as to whether he would heal him. So often we think that God must fulfill our will, forgetting that we must fulfill God's will. That is what we find Jesus preaching in many sermons. So perhaps this leper had heard such a sermon Jesus preached. Jesus said he was willing, and he cleansed him of the leprosy. Notice again that, like it was with Peter's mother-in-law, the healing here was immediate and obvious. Such is not true with modern faith healings. Today, when people claim to heal others, it's diseases that others cannot see, for if they could be seen, their fraudulent behavior would be easily made known. The so-called faith healers stir the people up into such a frenzy that their excitement can trick them into thinking they have been healed, but their symptoms will eventually return, at which point the person is blamed for not having enough faith. Such is not true with Jesus. Both the man and Jesus were calm, and Jesus simply spoke the words, and the leper was visibly cleansed right away. Even with this being true, Jesus told the leper to fulfill the requirements of the law of Moses, found in Leviticus 14, verses 2-9. Along with the requirements to go and show himself to the priest, Jesus also gave this man an instruction that he did not follow, which was that he wasn't to tell anybody about being healed. Wouldn't he have to tell the priest? Well, he would have to show the priest that he was cleansed, but not how he was cleansed. Leprosy could be healed on its own, but this would take time. But the fact that the leprosy was gone didn't require a miracle. Often people ask, why did Jesus give this man the command not to tell anyone? We understood why he told the demon not to go out and tell about Jesus, for that could harm Jesus' reputation. But why did he tell this man? Even though the text doesn't specifically say, we can deduce from the text that it was because the crowds coming to be healed were so large that it was beginning to get in the way of Jesus' mission to preach the gospel. His fame was spreading throughout Galilee because of the miracles, and so Jesus didn't want it advertised that he was in town, or people would simply come for the miracles and not hear the gospel. The man disobeyed Jesus, and it got so bad that Jesus often had to retreat into the wilderness in order to be even able to pray. I can understand this man's excitement in being healed by Jesus, and put in the same situation, I probably would have done the same thing. But disobeying Jesus here did have consequences, for it didn't allow Jesus to be as free in teaching the people, for instead of him going to them, they would have to come to him on more than one occasion. With that, our time is up for today. The Lord willing, we hope you'll join us for tomorrow's discussion of Luke chapter 5, verses 17 to 26, as we continue our walk through the Bible, one verse at a time. Thank you for watching today's episode. We hope that you found it edifying and ask that you not only subscribe to our channel and podcast, but that you like and share this episode among your friends, so that the saving gospel of Jesus Christ can go out to the whole world.